Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom and welcome back to today's Daf Yomi Pesachim Ayin Zayin. We have 5 lines from the top of the Amud, and resuming our discussion, which had begun in the Mishnah, which told us that those karbanos, which are time-sensitive karbanos, meant to be brought on that specific day, can be brought even if it so happens to be Shabbos, or even if Klal Yisrael is betumah, you will bring that karban in a state of tumah. And the Gemara says this applies to all types of karbanos, including the Seirei Roshei Chodashim. Why is that? Because we find a reference in the Torah to Rosh Chodesh with the term Moed, indicating it's a set time, and the karban brought on that day is a time-sensitive karban, which can be brought even b'Shabbos or b'Tumah. Continues the Gemara 5 lines from the top of the Amud. L'meimer, do you mean to say, if that's the case, that all these karbanos mentioned in the Mishnah, all those karbanos which will be brought on Shabbos and even b'Tumah, are because the Torah refers to them as moed? L'meimra, do you mean to say the kulhu mi moed asu? All those karbanos are rooted in the term moed? Menani mili, where do we find moed applied to all those karbanos? The Tana Rabbanon, Vayidaber Moshe es moyadei Hashem. This is the pasuk which concludes the parasha there in Chumash Vayikra. After the list of Yamim Tovim, the pasuk concludes that Moshe conveyed es moyadei Hashem el bnei Yisrael. Matam Medleimer. What's the point of this pasuk? It's pretty obvious. We just finished the whole list of Yamim Tovim, which Moshe Rabbeinu taught to Klal Yisrael. Why do we need to repeat and conclude using this pasuk that Moshe relayed the Me'adei Hashem to Yisrael? Their answer is, it's coming to add something. Lefisha lo lamadnu el letamadu Pesach. Because we've only learned, up until this point, we only know that Karban Tamid brought on a daily basis and the Karban Pesach are going to be Deicha Shabbos, are going to be Deicha Tumah. Why? Shenamar b'hu b'moyadei. Because in both karbanos we have a term b'moyadei mentioned, which comes to teach us b'moyadei in its appropriate appointed time, vafilu b'Shabbos. Even on Shabbos you bring the Tamid and the Pesach. B'moyadei also comes to teach us vafilu b'Tumah. Even if Yisrael happens to be Tamid, you will still proceed and bring the karban. That applies to Pesach and Tamid due to the fact that b'moyadei is mentioned in both cases. However, sha'ar karbanos tzibur menayin. How would we know that this same concept applies to other karbanos tzibur brought throughout the Yamim Tovim? Shenemar. That's why we need the pasuk in Parshas Pinchas in Sefer Bamidbar, discussing the karbanos of Yamim Tovim. Eile tasel Hashem b'moyadechem, which tells us that these are time-sensitive, time-related karbanos, and will be brought even b'Tumah or b'Shabbos. Menayin l'Rabbis, how do we know to include even the Omer, the karban brought on the 16th of Nisan, the Mincha, v'hakarav imay, together with its karban, shtei alechem, the 2 lechem brought on Shavuos, v'hakarav imam, and the karbanos brought with them? How do we know that these will be brought even b'Shabbos or b'Tumah? Talmud Loimar, that's why we need that pasuk. Vayidaber Moshe es moyadei Hashem el bnei Yisrael. This is the concluding pasuk of that long parsha, which also happens to list Omer Shtei Alechem within the karbanos. And by repeating this pasuk, repeating this term, Vayidaber Moshe es moyadei Hashem, what is the pasuk doing? Ha-pasuk kav'oi or kava moyed echad lekulan. The Torah now established one time for all those karbanos, meaning that everything included, everything mentioned before this pasuk, including the Omer Shtei Alechem, is time-specific, time-sensitive, and must be brought in its appropriate time, even if it so happens to be Shabbos or it's b'Tumah. So now we have a pasuk applied to all these karbanos, indicating that they're brought on Shabbos and Tumah. V'kol hani lamali. If that's the case, why do we need a separate reference for each karban? Let the Torah just inform us that one of these will have this halacha of Shabbos and Tumah. Let's just apply it to the other ones. Tzrichi, all I needed. Dikas Rachmana Tamid, the pasuk would only have mentioned that Tamid would have this halacha, I would say, Tamid is special. Hava Amina. Tamid, Shekein Tadr, has those unique elements. It's a constant carbon. It's a daily, twice daily carbon. The Kodl, and it's completely on the Mizbeach. It's an Oila. That's why it stands higher, and perhaps can be brought even b'Shabbos or b'Tumah. Aval Pesach loy, but a carbon Pesach, which contains none of these elements. Perhaps this halacha won't apply there. Kamash Mon, that's why the Torah informs us, yes, even Pesach has this halacha. Because Rachmana Pesach, the Torah only informed us regarding Pesach, I would say Pesach, that's special, Shonish Karis. Because if one neglects Pesach, that generates Karis. So perhaps Pesach stands higher. Aval Tamid, the Einanish Karis, Emaloi, but Tamid, that does not have a Karis. Perhaps the halacha won't apply there, Kamash Malon, that's why the Torah needs to inform us, it applies to Tamid as well. Because Rachmana Netarti, had the Torah only mentioned both of these, Pesach and Tamid. I mean, I would still say, Hani, Hu Yeshba and Sad Chomer. These two, Pesach and Tamid, each one has a unique element of Chumrah, which is not found by other Karbanis. For instance, Tamid is Tadr, V'Kol. Tamid has the Maila that it's constant, it's daily, and it's completely on the Mizbeach. Pesach has a Maila, Shewanish Karas. It generates Karas. So perhaps, due to their added elements of Chumrah, they will have the halacha of Shabbos B'Tumah. Aval Shar Karbanis Tzibur Emelei, but when it comes to other Karbanis which contain none of these elements, perhaps the halacha of Shabbos or Tumah will not apply there. Kasav Rachmana. That's why Torah had to say Eila Tas Lashem Ma'adechem to include all the other Karbanis. Because Rachmana Eila Tas Lashem Ma'adechem. If the Torah would have only said Eila Tas Lashem Ma'adechem to include the other Karbanis, I would still say there's room to differentiate. Hava Amina. I would contemplate Shar Karbanis Tzibur, Habar L'Chaper. This only applies to other Karbanis Tzibur who are brought for Kapara. The Karbanis on Yom Tov, the Musafin, Rashi says, even the Oila really is Mechaper on it. So I say there's a Kapara element there. So due to that added ability, perhaps it stands higher and can be brought even b'Shabbos or b'Tumah. Aval Omer Shtei Alechem. But when it comes to the Minchas Omer or the Shtei Alechem, which have no kapara ability, they ain't born l'chaper, they're not coming to be mechaper. What then? Elolahater ba'alma ninu. The point is merely to be mated the new crop. You bring the Minchas Omer, which allows you to eat the new crop, the chadash. You bring the Shtei Alechem, which inaugurates the new crop in the hakrava context in the Beis Hamikdash. The point is to be mated the new crop, but not to be mechaper. So perhaps it doesn't stand as high, it's not as highly regarded as the other karbanos, and therefore you would not apply this halacha there. They can't be brought on Shabbos or B'Tumah Kamash Malon. That's why Pasuk needs to tell us there as well. This halacha will apply. Because of Rachmana Omer Shtei Alechem Lichudayu. Now, if the Torah would only have said Omer Shtei Alechem on their own, I would still say that perhaps the halacha only applies there. Hava Amina Adrava, perhaps just the opposite. Omer Shtei Alechem De'alimi. Omer Shtei Alechem, which are superior. Deboin Lahater, which have the ability to be mater chadash. That's real power. That's why they have this added advantage. They can be brought to Shabbos or B'Tumah Aval Hanach Le, but the other karbanos not. And that's why the Torah has to tell us that each and every one of these karbanos has this ability. Kamash Malan, Torah informs us by applying the term b'may adai b'madechem, etc. The Torah is teaching you that each one of these karbanos will have the ability to be dechatam Shabbos and Tumah. So, in conclusion, we learned that all these karbanos, which are time-related, time-sensitive karbanos, can be brought even b'Shabbos or even b'Tumah if necessary. We have the karban tamid because it says b'mayadei. We have karban Pesach there as well. We have b'mayadei. Other karbanos tzibur, the musafin, it says b'mayadechem. The omer shtei alechem eila mayadei Hashem. Vaydaber Moshe es mayadei Hashem. And as we learned yesterday regarding the Sir Rish Chodesh, because there as well we have a term mayid in reference to Rish Chodesh. Koralei mayid. Continues the Gemara. Let's take a look at our Mishnah again. We have all those karbanos tzibur which are ba'in b'tumah. The entire carbon is tumah. You can still bring it, be makriv it. You can't eat it. Aside from the karban Pesach, you can't eat the other karbanos, but you can be makriv. You can be zarek the dam. The Gemara will have a kasha. Before we get to the kasha, we're going to set up the kasha by introducing several elements into our sugya, and then the Gemara will lead up to the kasha. Firstly, says the Gemara, Savru, the Bnei Yeshiva figured, the Lekuli Alma, that the common view, the consensus is, Tuma Dechuya Hi B'Tzibur. This is a machlekes mentioned in the Gemara Yuma. We learned that a tzibur who is tamei may bring their carbon. Is it a heter? Is it completely mutter? Is it permissible? Or do we say tuma dechuya? It's pushed away. It's an element of concern, the tuma. But the Torah allows us to ignore it, to push it aside. And we're going to learn soon that the tzitz, the plate sitting on the Kohen Gadol's forehead, would be maratza, would actually counteract that tumah, nullify the consequences of the tumah, would be machshir the carbon. Because really the tumah is here. It's not that it's mutter. The Torah allows you to override, to ignore it. So the Bnei Yeshiva figured that the prevalent shita is that tumah is dechuya b'tzibur. The l'kuli alma tumah dechuya hi b'tzibur u'be'inan tzitz l'ratzis, and therefore we need a tzitz to allow for that hakrava. Why did we assume tumah dechuya? Because that seems to be the commonly accepted shita. The leka tana, the shamas le tumah hutra b'tzibur. We don't really find a tana that subscribes to the shita of tumah hutra b'tzibur. El Rabbi Yehuda. Aside from Rabbi Yehuda, we don't find another shita. That's why we assume that the accepted shita is tumah dechuya b'tzibur. We find Rabbi Shimon holds that way. We find, as Tosis points out, the next stuff we find Rabbi Yossi holds that way, and we know generally that halacha follows Rabbi Yossi's shita. So that was the assumption. We're working with the working assumption that tumah dechuya b'tzibur. Where do we find this discussion of tumah hutra b'tzibur or dechuya b'tzibur the sanya? Tzitz bein sheyeshnei al mitzchay, the tzitz, whether it's actually being worn, it's present on the metzach, on the forehead of the Kohen Gadol, ubein she'eino mitzchay, or whether it's not on his forehead, it's just sitting somewhere on the table. Meratza, it still has the same ability to be meratza, to undo the effect of tumah and generate ritzui. It accomplishes that the carbon will be accepted by Hashem. We're speaking about either a carbon yachid, where you found out after the fact that it was tameh, so the tzitz is meratza, or a carbon tzibur, where we say lechatchila you can bring the carbon betuma when necessary, when Yisrael tameh. You still need the ritzui tzitz, and that tzitz is meratza. It has that positive effect. It remedies the carbon, whether or not it's on the Kohen Gadol's metzach. David Reb Shimon, he holds that the actual tzitz has the power to do so. It doesn't necessarily need to be worn at the time of the tumah. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, oideyu al mitzchay meratza. When it's sitting, when it's worn by the Kohen Gadol, it's on his forehead, then it can rectify the carbon. Ein oideyu al mitzchay ein meratza, but it's not on his metzach, it's not meratza. It's that combined tzitz with the Kohen Gadol wearing it that it has the ritzui effect. Amalei Rabbi Shimon, I'll prove to you otherwise. Kohen Gadol b'Yom Kippur michiach. The Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur will provide a proof. We're speaking during the avodah which he performs all the way inside in the Kodesh HaKadosh when he's only wearing the 4 big day leaven without the tzitz. She'enei mitzcha meratza. At that point, the tzitz is not on his metzach. And the Gemara is assuming that it's still effective. Should a tumah occur at that moment, the tzitz can still be meratz. So you see that the tzitz doesn't have to be on his forehead. Amalai, so Rabbi Yehuda responded, Hanach Yom Kippurim, leave aside Yom Kippur. That's not a raya. Shetumah hutra b'tzibur. We're speaking about a public carbon tzibur. Carbon tzibur doesn't need tzitz. Rabbi Yehuda holds that tumah is mutter by tzibur. You don't need a tzitz at all. So sure, over there's no problem if the tzitz is not being worn. But generally speaking, when you need the tzitz, for instance, by a carbon yachid, you found out after the fact that it was tameh, the tzitz can rectify it, but that's only if the Kohen Gadol was wearing it at the time. In any case, what do we see? There seems to be machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda, who holds that tumah hutra b'tzibur. When we have a tumah b'tzibur, it's mutter. You don't need the effect of the tzitz. Mechlad Reb Shimon savar. However, Reb Shimon holds tumah tchuyi b'tzibur. That seems to be the machlokes here. It's pretty obvious that Rabbi Yehuda is the one who holds tumah hutra, whereas Reb Shimon disagreed. He held tumah tchuyi b'tzibur. Even a carbon tzibur, the tumah needs the assistance of the tzitz, and that's why Yom Kippur provides a good raya. Although it's a carbon tzibur, the tumah there is merely being overridden with the assistance of the tzitz. And if we see that the tzitz doesn't have to be on the Kohen Gadol, evidently that's not a requirement. So Reb Shimon holds tumah tchuya, and the Gemara assumes that is the commonly accepted view. So that's number one, tumah tchuya b'tzibur. Number two, udekuli alma. It also seems that the common prevalent shita is ein hatzitz meratza al achiles. The ability of the tzitz to be meratza, that's only applied to the dam, which is the essence of the kapara. But it's not meratza. It doesn't rectify. It doesn't have any positive effect on the portion of the carbon which is going to be eaten. For instance, the basar. The Gemara is assuming that it's so. Why? The leka tana, the shamasli. We don't find a tana that holds otherwise. The amar hatzitz meratza al achiles, that the tzitz can have a positive effect even on the achila portion of the carbon, even on the basar. We don't find a tana except Rabbi Lezer. The Sanya Rabbi Lezer Omer, hatzitz meratza al achiles. The tzitz can have a positive effect even on the edible portion of the carbon, not only on the dam which goes in the mizbeach, but even the basar. Now, of course, it doesn't mean that you can eat it when it was tummy. If you have a carbon which is tummy, we learned in the Mishnah, you can't eat the basar. What he means to say is that it's as though the basar is here. The tzitz brings the basar, which is tummy as well, into the fold, and it's considered as though it's processed together with the dam. It can be part of the hakrava process. It's not negated due to the fact that it's tummy. It was incorporated in the hakrava. That's Rabbi Lezer's shita. It's only Rabbi Lezer. Rabbi Yossi, no, the tzitz cannot be of any assistance to the chelik of the carbon which is going to be eaten. It only remedies the dam. But the basar remains tamei and it's out of the fold. It can't be considered as something incorporated in the hakrava process. That being the case, that number one, even a tumah b'tzibur is the chuya. It's not mutter. It's the chuya. It's overridden. It's pushed away. But we need that tzitz to come help matters. And then number two, that tzitz cannot be effective for the achila portion of the carbon. It can only help for the dam portion. That being the case, now we're set up for the kasha. If so, neima masnisin the like Rabbi Yehoda. Apparently, our Mishnah, which says that a carbon which is completely tamei, the dam, the basar, you can go be makar of that carbon. You can do zrika, even though the basar is tamei and the tzitz won't be masakin and machsha that basar because tzitz is not meratza on the achila portion. It's as though you have no basar here, and this is inconsistent with Rabbi Yehoda, who says that you need to have two elements present. You need to have dam and basar both in a state of fitness. They both have to be fit and royal akrava in order for the carbon to be kosher, to enable the zrikas adam. And our Mishnah, which doesn't seem to be concerned with that halacha, is apparently not following Rabbi Yehoda Shita. Neighbor Masisin look Rabbi Yehoda. The Sanya. We learned in a brayso. The pasuk says, "V'asisa oiloi secha habasar v'hadam." The pasuk continues, "Al mizbach Hashem lekecha v'dam zevachecha yishafech al mizbach Hashem lekecha v'basar toichel." Says the brayso, "V'asisa oiloi secha habasar v'hadam." We seem to connect basar and dam here. Rabbi Yehoda Eimer, this comes to teach us that two things are interdependent. Im ein dam, im basar. If there's no dam available, there's no proper fit dam. The dam is not here, or tamei ein basar. And it says, oh, there's no basar. You can't eat the basar without doing the zrika on the dam. Im ein basar ein dam. Likewise, if there's no basar present, whether it's not here or whether it's tamei, it's not basar ro'i fa'akrava. Ein dam. You can't do zrikas adam. Pretty clear that according to be sure, in order to enable zrika, you have to have basar which is kosher, which is tar. Our Mishnah, which doesn't seem to be concerned with that requirement, we allow zrika even if the basar is tamei, seems to be in contradiction with Rabbi Shua. Before we get to that kasha, we'll get to that a bit later. We're going to get into the machlokes in Eliezer and Rabbi Shua, elaborate on it a bit, and then come back to the kasha. The Brisa continues. So this was Shittas Rabbi Shua, who requires both elements of the korban to be present to allow hakrava. Rav Lezer Omer, no. All you need is the dam, which is the most vital and crucial part of that korban. Dam afal b'she'en basar. As long as you have the dam, even if there's no basar present, you can do zrika. Shenemar. That's the ending of that pasuk. V'dam is v'checha yishafich, which tells us that the shvichas hadam is the crucial and vital factor of that korban. The presence of basar is not. Now the Gemara is going to analyze what each shita does with the other one's psukim. Umani mekayim, if so, how does Rabbi Lezer apply the pasuk that Rabbi Shua used, v'asisa l'secha basar adam, which seems to connect basar and dam? To teach us another halach. Madam bazrika, just as the dam you throw on the mizbeach, a basar bazrika, the basar you meant to throw on the mizbeach as well. Have Omer, we conclude from this, lul katan, there was this little gap, yesh bein kevesh l'mizbeach, between the ramp and the mizbeach, over which you would throw the basar. Tosfos says you didn't really need a gap; it was just there as a reminder to ensure that they would comply with this halach. So that's what the pasuk v'asisa oilo yisecha habasar v'adam is coming to teach us. Just as you throw the dam, you throw the basar. Reb Shua nami haksiv v'dam zev'checha yishafich. What does Reb Shua do with Reb Lezer's pasuk? V'dam zev'checha yishafich, which indicates that only dam is really what's so important here. The basar is not necessarily a vital factor. Oh, Malacha, Rabbi Shua says like this: Haksiv gabei v'basar toichel. The pasuk concludes, "V'dam zev'checha yishafich al mizbeach Hashem l'kecha v'basar toichel." Just the opposite. You see that dam and basar go hand in hand. So according to Rabbi Shua, we really have two psukim saying the same thing. V'asisa oila secha basar v'adam. That basar v'adam, two crucial elements. And then the pasuk continues again and repeats the same thing. V'dam zev'checha yishafich, and then v'basar toichel. Why the repetition? Why do we need two psukim? Chad ba'oila v'chad b'shlamim. The first one is by oila, v'asisa oila secha basar v'adam. The second one, v'dam zev'checha, that's a shlamim. So that's applying the halacha to shlamim. Utzricha, why both needed? Because Rachmana ba'oila, the Torah only told us this halacha by oila. Which halacha? That in order for this korban to be brought to enable the zrika, you need to have also basar present. If we would only learn oila, I would say havamina oila hi the chamira. This only applies to oila on account of its high status, its mochashav, its chamer, shekein kolol, because it's completely brought on mizbeach. Ava shlomim deli chamiri, but shlomim which doesn't stand so high, it's not completely on mizbeach. Emelai, perhaps this halacha doesn't apply there, and even if there's no basar present, it doesn't disqualify the akrava. That's why we have to speak about shlomim, because the Rachmana shlomim, had the Torah only mentioned shlomim, I would say just the opposite. Havamina adrabah. The isbehu shtei achilas, just the opposite. Shlomim stands higher in a way because there are two consumptions, two achilas, contained in a shlomim. Part of it goes onto the mizbeach, chelev, etc., and part of it is eaten by the owner. So perhaps due to the fact that it has the double achila element, you have to be more careful with the achila, and the basar has to be here in order to allow the akrava. Aval oila the leis bosh the achilas, but oila which doesn't have a double achila, it's completely on the mizbeach, it's only achilas mizbeach. Emelei, perhaps basar is not so crucial. Kamash malon, that's why the repetition is needed, one for oila, one for shlamim. Continues the Gemara. Rabbi Lezer, what does Lezer do with this pasuk? Rabbi Lezer nami haksiva basar toicha. This was Rabbi Shua's response. Sure, the pasuk says v'dam zev'checha yishafich, speaking only about dam, but then the pasuk concludes basar toicha, which indicates that basar is a vital ingredient. Rabbi Lezer doesn't agree with that. He says only basar is important. What does he do with the ending of the pasuk? Basar toichel. Oh, Malacha, he'll tell you like this. That's coming to tell us another halacha. Halmi boile. That's needed to teach us when to eat basar. She'ein ha-basar mutar ba'achila. Achi yizarek hadam. One cannot eat the basar of carbon only after the zrika. First comes zrika, and then comes achilas basar. That's why the pasuk includes v'dam zevachach yishafech v'basar toichel, to teach us this halacha. It's unrelated to our discussion. Certainly, dam without basar is perfectly fine. The question is, from what point onward can you eat the basar? The pasuk is telling us you have to wait for zrika. If the pasuk is needed for that din, then perhaps emakule lahidasa. The entire pasuk is simply coming to teach us this halacha, and it's no longer available for the other halacha. That dam is sufficient without basar. Dam, af al pi she'en basar minola. If that's the case, how do we know the other halacha? That dam is enough without basar. How can you learn both things from the same pasuk? Omar Allah Lezer will respond, yeah. Both can be derived from the same pasuk. Why? Imkain, because if the whole purpose of this pasuk was simply to tell us when to eat the basar, when you have dam and basar, when you meant to eat it, only after the zrika, that's the whole point and purpose. Imkain, nichtav rachmana, the pasuk should have switched the sequence. The pasuk should have said, ha-basar toichel, eat the basar, v'hadar, and then the pasuk should have said, v'dam zevachecha yishafich. You should be shayfich the dam of the carbon, and as Rashi points out, it doesn't say tishpech. Do the zrika, the shvicha now. Yishafech indicates that it's referring to a past event. The zrika's dam which already occurred before, prior to achila. K'dichsiv b'reisha, just as we find in the beginning of that pasuk, v'asisa oileisecha habasar v'adam. First we have a reference to basar and then dam. Here as well, the pasuk could have said, habasar toichel, v'dam ezvachecha yishafich, to indicate that the achilas basar only takes place after the dam was already nizrak. So to teach us that halacha, the pasuk should have reversed its order, should have stated in this manner, which is consistent with the reish of the pasuk, where first comes basar and then dam. Why did the Torah choose to reverse the order of the words? Why is it that the pasuk begins with dam, and only later that is also a lesson that the Torah is trying to teach us. By switching around the sequence, by mentioning dam first, the Torah is telling us we're meant to apply a drasha right here. V'dam zevachecha yishafech, stop. Which means even if you only have dam without basar, you can bring that carbon. So that's one thing we learn. And the fact that the pasuk does conclude with a reference to eating the basar, basar toichel, that tells us the other halacha. When to eat basar? When there is basar? When do you eat it? After this rik. Ushmamina, and we learn from here as well, she'ena basar mutar b'achila, and she'izarek hadam, that the basar is only mutar b'achila from the point of zrika onward. So we learn both halachas from the same pasuk. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yeshua. Now, how does Rabbi Yeshua know this halacha? That basar can only be eaten after zrika. Eina basar mutar b'achila ad she'izarek hadam. How does he know that? There's a gersa that adds the words Minole. How does he know that halacha? Because keep in mind that Rishon already used both psukim for the purpose of teaching us that you need to have dam and basar present to enable the zrika. One pasuk was for oila, one for shlamim. He no longer has a pasuk available to teach us this halacha. When to eat the basar? Answers the Gemara, kal v'chaymeru. He will derive it by way of a kal v'chaymer. He doesn't need a pasuk. Uma imur. Since we find that a murani, the fat, etc. of the carbon, since we find that a muran, even though they don't disqualify the carbon, when they're not here, they're not ma'akev kapara, still at all, ki isnu ma'akvi, when they are present, they hold up the achilas basar. This we learned earlier in the Masechta and Daf Nantes. When the emur are not here, you have to wait patiently for the Torah's emur to eat the basar. So although they're not really an integral part of the carbon, they're not ma'akev, they're not vital and crucial, but when they're here, you have to wait for them. Certainly the dam, which is the core essence of the hakrava and the kapara, dam the chilesi ma'akev, when the dam is not here, it holds up, it's mi'akev, the achilas basar. Rashi explains that you can't eat the basar of the carbon if there's no zrikas dam. He says because the carbon is really off limits as soon as you are magdish it. The only reason the kohen can eat the basar is because he's taking from the shulchan gavai, the heavenly table, so to speak. Once the mizbeach accepted the carbon, Hashem now gives it over to the kehanim. That acceptance only took place when there was a kapara done through dam. So if there's no dam, certainly the basar is asr. The chilesi ma'akev, when there's no dam here, it is ma'akev the achila. So it really stands higher than the imur. Without dam, you have no akrava. Ki isay like koshkin ma'akev. Certainly if it's here, of course it holds up and prevents the achilas basar. You have to wait for the zrika to allow achilas basar. That's a plain, simple kavachim. You don't need a pasuk for it. Rabbi Lezer. So why does Rabbi Lezer need a pasuk? Mostly the asab kavachim. Sometimes you find that even something that can't theoretically be learned from a kavachim, Torah v'kasal, the Torah is matriach to write it down. Rabbi Yeshua, whether Rabbi Yeshua respond to that, kol hecha the ikal midrash darshinim. But when we have an option, we have a way out. When we have something that we can apply the pasuk to, which was not learned out from a kavachim, kol hecha the ikal midrash. If we have the ability to apply the pasuk for a drasha which is as yet unknown from a kavachim, darshina, we're meant to prefer that. Sure, it can happen that the pasuk is merely repeating something that was learned from a kavachim or that can be learned from a kavachim, but if you have a way out, if you have an alternative, such as in this case, says Rabbi Yeshua, I can apply the pasuk for something else. This halacha that achilas basar only takes place after zrika, I learned from a kavachim. The pasuk, I apply for something else. To teach us that both elements of the carbon, the dam and the basar, need to be here, need to be present, need to be fit in order to allow zrika and akrava of the carbon. Let's just stop for a moment and summarize the discussion between Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Yeshua. We have two psukim, v'asisa oiloi secha basar adam, and we have v'dam zev'checha yishafech v'basar toich. Rabbi Lezer says, as long as you have dam, that in itself enables the zrika. You don't have to have basar. The first part of the pasuk, v'asisa oiloi secha basar adam, which seems to connect basar to dam, is simply coming to tell us, just as dam is bizrika on the mizbeach, basar as well, you need to toss on the mizbeach. V'dam zev'checha yishafech comes to tell us, dam on its own is sufficient to allow the akrava of the carbon. The last words, v'basar toichel, comes to tell us that the basar is only mutal achazrik. Rabbi Yeshua, on the other hand, learns v'asisa olesecha basar adam comes to tell us that by an oila, this carbon is not kosher unless you have both parts of the carbon, dam and basar, which are fit for hakrava, which are karev, which are tahar. The second portion of the pasuk, v'dam zev'checha yishafech v'habasar toichel, as well, is coming to tell us the same halacha, except by a shlamim, that dam and basar are vital ingredients for the kashrus carbon. How does Rabbi Yeshua know that basar is only mutal achazrika? Through a kavachim. Now, after this whole introduction, we're perfectly set up for the kasha. Our Mishnah, which tells us that you can bring even a carbon which was entirely tummy, the dam, the chelev, the basar. You can bring a betuma when necessary, because as we said, it's a carbon which needs to be brought today, and it's doicha Shabbos, it's doicha tuma. But how can you do that? Rabbi Yeshua holds that you need to have basar as part of the carbon process. Since we're speaking about tuma, which is hutcha, it's not hutra, it's not mutter, it's merely overridden. You need to have the ritzi tzitz to come help us. And a tzitz is only meratza, it's only effective for the dam. It's not effective for the achila portion of the carbon, in which case the basar, which is tumah, cannot be considered as part of the akrava process. If you have no basar taking part in the akrava, you have no carbon, according to Rabbi Yeshua. How does the Mishnah tell us that the carbon is kosher? Says the Gemara, the second wide line, Hashta. Now, having known this, that Rabbi Yehoshua requires dam and basar, not only by the oila, even by the shlomim. Leima masnisna the loik Rabbi Yehoshua. It would seem that our Mishnah cannot fit with Rabbi Yehoshua. The kivan the Amar bein entirety. Since Rabbi Yehoshua says you need to have both elements present, dam and basar, v'tzitz achiles limeratza, and we're assuming that the tzitz can't rectify, can't remedy, can't be machsha, the chelik achila, the basar of that carbon. Hechi asa betuma. How does the Mishnah allow us to bring the karbanos betuma? The tzitz perhaps can help for the dam. Tzitz is meratza on dam to enable the zrika, but it's not meratza on the achila. On the basar, or when we have the mincha, the leftover after you take out the kmitza, the leftover, the shirayim, that's the achila portion. The tzitz doesn't help for that. And since that's tamei, it's off limits. It's not part of the akrava. You're missing a vital ingredient in this carbon. Answers the Gemara. Afilu teim Rabbi Yehoshua. No, the Mishnah perhaps can be following Rabbi Yehoshua. Because Rabbi Yehoshua had tzitz meratza lo'olam. Rabbi Yehoshua will hold, although the tzitz can't be effective for the achila portion, but it can benefit the oilen. This is another element in the carbon. We have dam, we have the achila portion, the basar, for instance, and we have the chelev, the emurin. Those are called oilen. They're going to be on the mizbeach. And as long as it sits, activates that, it's machsha that portion, sits as meratz ala oilen, and it allows that to be considered as to be incorporated in the hakrava process, as though it's not tamei. We consider as though it's not tamei with respect to allowing the zrika. It's part of the hakrava process. It's part of the carbon. If that's the case, we can do zrika because Rabbi Yehoshua requires both elements. You need dam, and you also need either one, either chelev or basar. In this case, although you don't have basar as part of the carbon, because the basar is tamei and off limits, but the tzitz can be machshir the chelev. In which case, you have, aside from dam, you have a kezais of chelev, which will now enable the dam for zrika. Says the Gemara, okay, that explains the animal karbanis mentioned in the Mishnah. You have the dam, you have the chelev, and the zrika benefits both of them. So you have both elements to allow the hakrav. Hatenach zvachim, the ikoilim, that explains the animal karbanis, where you have the oilim, you have the chelev. Elo oimer shtei alechem. But what about the oimer, which is merely a mincha? You have the kmitza portion, which is actually considered like the dam of a carbon. The dam is separated from the carbon, put on the mizbeach. The koimitz is like the dam separated from the mincha. And then you have the leftover, the shiurayim, the oichlin, which are meant to be eaten by the kohen. You don't have that middle stage, the oil and the chelev. Ushtei alechem, likewise the shtei alechem, where you don't even have even a kmitza. So when it comes to those two karbanis, the leka oilen, where you don't have an oilen aspect, Michael Ameimar. How does the Mishnah allow them to be brought betuma? For instance, the oimer. You have a kmitza which is considered like dam, and the tzitz will be meratz on the dam, but it won't be meratz on the oichen portion of the mincha. And you can't bring a mincha if that's the case. You need to have both elements. The portion which goes on the mizbeach, the dam, you have to have the achila portion as well. So back to square one. It would seem that our Mishnah is inconsistent with Rabbi Yehoshua. Says the Gemara, another suggestion. Amri, they answered, Ki Amar Rabbi Yehoshua, Nami de Beinatarti. When did the Rabbi Yehoshua say you need both elements, dam and basar? Bezvachim, that's only by an animal carbon, but menachas le'amar. When it comes to mincha, where it's all one entity, you have the mincha, which is one thing, and sure, the kmitza is separated from the mincha, but it's like a representative of the entire mincha. It's not as though we have two separate aspects to the mincha here. And therefore, Rabbi Yehoshua doesn't require that both elements should be fit. As long as the zrika, so to speak, the kmitza of that mincha is fine, because the tzitz addresses that. You've already addressed the entire mincha. But mincha lo yamar. And therefore, when it comes to the omer, now Mishnah, it's okay. With menachas lo yamar, is that so that Rabbi Yehoshua wouldn't apply his concept by menachas? That's not. We learned in the Mishnah where we clearly see otherwise. Nitma shi'areh, speaking about a mincha, whose leftovers became tummy. There's a girsa that adds nisr for shi'areh. They got burnt. Of the shi'areh, the leftovers got lost. What is halacha? Can you do the zrika? Kemidas Rabbi Eliezer kshera. According to Rabbi Eliezer shita, it's kosher, and you could do the kmitza. You could take the kmitza and put it on the mizbeach. Because according to Rabbi Eliezer, you don't have to have two aspects, two elements. As long as you have the dam, that's okay. In the mincha, as long as you have the kmitza, it's okay. Kmitza Rabbi Yehoshua psula, but according to Rabbi Yeshua's shita, it's possible because you need both elements present to allow haktara, to allow hakrava. You need to have dam and basar. In this case, by a mincha, you need to have the kmitza portion and the shirayim available. It's very clear that Rabbi Yehoshua applies his concept to menachas as well. Answers the Gemara, kimidas v'loy kimidas. The Mishnah here, the Tana, is adopting somewhat Rabbi Yeshua's shita. Kimidas. It's somewhat in line with Rabbi Yeshua's shita, v'loy kimidas, but not exactly. In one aspect, the Mishnah is following Rabbi Yeshua, but actually the Mishnah is more machmer than Rabbi Yeshua. Kimidas Rabbi Yeshua, following Rabbi Yeshua to be in entirety. That we need both elements. We need dam and basar. V'loy kimidas Rabbi Yeshua, however, it's not exactly in line with his shita because the Ilu Rabbi Yeshua bezvacham amar. Rabbi Yeshua only applies his halacha to animal karbonis, but menachas le'amar. It doesn't apply his halacha to menachas. That's Rabbi Yeshua. The Ilu haitana savar, but this Tana is more machmer. He holds afilu b'menachas. That even there you need two elements present to allow haktara. But Rabbi Yeshua himself perhaps doesn't require it by menachas, and therefore he's consistent with our Mishnah, which allows the omer to be brought betum. Says Gemara, that's a problem. Umanai haitana. Who is going to be this Tana? The koikav aseid on the one hand follows Rabbi Yeshua conceptually, umachmer tfei minei, and is actually more machmer than him. He applies the halacha to menachas as well. At this point, we really haven't found such a Tana. It's difficult to speculate about such a thing. V'oid, in addition, Tanya. We learned in a brisa where it seems very clear that Rabbi Yeshua applies his din to mincha as well. On Rabbi Yossi. Now this brisa will sound a bit cryptic. The Gemara Daf Ayin Ches will elaborate on it. On Rabbi Yossi, Roy ani yasir Rabbi Eliezer b'menachos b'zvachim. Rabbi Yossi was related to the machlokes between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Eliezer was the one who held that dam is enough. You don't need basar to allow hakrava, to allow zrika. Whereas Rabbi Yeshua says you need dam and basar. Rabbi Yossi says, look, to me it seems Roy ani as divrei Rabbi Eliezer b'menachos b'zvachim. His opinion seems to be more probable. I seem to be in agreement with that shita. Rabbi Eliezer shita by menachos and by zvachim. V'divrei Rabbi Yeshua, and the words of Rabbi Yeshua seems to be more probable than Rabbi Eliezer. B'zvachim and menachos, by both karbonos and menachos. Now it seems to be a bit contradictory. The Gemara later will explain. In any case, the brisa continues. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer b'zvachim. The words of Rabbi Eliezer seem to be more probable to me. Shaya Omer, he would say, dam afu b'shein basar, and sham basar, even though there's dam without basar, that's okay. V'dir Rishua b'zvachim, and Rishua's words by zvachim, Shaya Omer, he used to say, im ein dam in basar, if there's no dam, the basar is as though it's not here. Im ein basar and dam, if there's no basar, there's no dam. Both ingredients are necessary for the success of the carbon. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer b'menachos, Rabbi Eliezer shita by menachos, I seem to concur with. Shaya Omer, koimetz ava b'shein shirayim. He held that a koimetz is enough even though there's no shirayim. Divrei Rabbi Yeshua b'menachos is shaya omer im ein koimetz and shirayim. If you don't have the koimetz, then the shirayim are worthless. Im ein shirayim and koimetz. If there are no shirayim present, then the koimetz is possible as well. The words need to be elaborated on, as the Gemara later will explain. But what pertains to us is that we see very clearly Rabbi Yossi in the brisa relates to Rabbi Yeshua even with respect to menachos. Apparently, even by mincha, both ingredients, both elements need to be fit, need to be royal akrava, the koimet and the shirayim. If that's the case, how does our Mishnah allow bringing a mincha, a omer, betuma? The tzitz can only be effective for the kaimetz, which is like the dam, but not for the shirayim. If you have no shirayim, you have no achilos. It's as though you have dam without basar. You can't bring this carbon. Says the Gemara, the Gemara will offer another suggestion. Ella kasav Rabbi Yehoda, hatzitz meratza ala oilin v'ala achilos. We made an assertion earlier that all agree that tzitz cannot be effective for the achila portion of the carbon. No, perhaps Rabbi Yehoda disagrees. He holds that tzitz can be meratza, can remedy, can be effective for the oilin, the chelev portion, for the achila portion, in which case, even if the entire carbon is puzzle, just as the tzitz activates the dam, the tzitz will activate the basar as well, the shiurei mincha as well, and allow it to be incorporated into the hakrava process, in which case you have both elements, both aspects of the carbon. And that explains our Mishnah. If that will be the case, let's go back to the Mishnah mentioned earlier. We have a mincha whose shirayim became tamei, got lost, burnt. The Mishnah tells us that according to Rabbi Yehoda, it's possible. Why? Amai can be that Rabbi Yehoda psula. Why is it possible? You just told me that the tzitz is meratza on the shirayim. A'oved v'sarf. That is only in reference to the shirayim that got lost or burnt, in which case they're physically not here. The tzitz can't be effective for that. Nothing you can do. They're missing. Therefore it's possible. But when it comes to shirayim which are tamei, perhaps the tzitz can be machshir that. Such as in our Mishnah, where the omer is tamei and the tzitz will take care of it. Says, well, we have a problem, because the Mishnah there, by Mincha, discussed three scenarios. The shirayim that got lost, got burnt, and became tamei. In order to bring out whose shita would the Mishnah mention tumah? Ela nitma laman katani. What was the point of mentioning tumah? Little Rabbi Lezer, in order to teach us that according to Rabbi Lezer it's fine, even though the shirayim are tamei, you don't need shirayim, the kmitza is enough, because dam without basar is enough. Was that the point of mentioning it? Pshita, it's pashat. There's no need to discuss nitma. Why? Hashta yishleimar. Avad v'saraf, the lesnu, machsher b'lezer. Now that you're telling me, we have three cases: lost, burnt, and nitma. If in a case where the shirayim are physically not present, are lost or burnt, you're going to tell me that Rabbi Lezer is machsher because he doesn't need the shirayim as an ingredient in that crop. So if in that case he's machsher, certainly when it's merely nitma, it's here, but it's just nitma. Nitma, the isay, that the shirayim are actually present. Mibaya, is there a need to tell me that according to Rabbi Lezer it's kosher? Of course it's kosher. So what was the point of discussing nitma? Not to inform us that according to Rabbi Lezer it's kosher? Of course it's kosher. If it's gone, it's kosher. And certainly if it's here and just tell me it's kosher. Ela pshita, the Rabbi Yehoda. Apparently the point of mentioning the nitma case was to bring out the Rabbi Yehoda shita, who says it's possible. When the shirayim are nitma, it's possible because you don't have the shirayim included in the akrova. Uktani psula. The Mishnah clearly says that according to Rabbi Yehoda it's possible. Evidently, the tzitz cannot be machshir the shirayim, cannot be machshir the achilles. If that's the case, how's Rabbi Yehoda going to be in line with our Mishnah that allows us to bring a omer which is completely tamei? The tzitz won't help the achila portion. Void. In addition, we have a clear brisa that according to Rabbi Yehoda, tzitz won't help for the achila portion. Void. Tanya. Rabbi Yehoda called zvachan shabatar all karbanis bein shnitma basar b'chelev kayim. Rabbi Yehoda requires not only dam but also the achila portion, whether a kazayis of the basar or even a kazayis of the chelev. That's also enough. Kol zvach shabator bein shnitma basar, whether we're speaking that the entire basar became tamei v'chelev kayim and the chelev portion is still around, that's okay. Ubein shnitma chelev ubasar kayim, whether the chelev became tamei and the basar is still present, he's here, he's tar. In either case, zerek zadam, that enables us to do zrik. Aval nitmu tarvayuloi. Apparently, if they both became tamei, basar and dam, you can no longer do zrika. Why not? Al makasav Rabbi Yehoda. Apparently, Rabbi Yehoda holds eina tzitz meratze al oilin v'lo al achiles. Tzitz cannot benefit the chelev which goes in the mizbeach, nor the basar which is meant to be eaten. So now that we've proven that to be the case, going back to the kasha, back to square one. Our Mishnah, which tells us that you can bring a carbon, whether it's an animal carbon, whether it's a mincha, even though it's entirely tummy, doesn't seem to be consistent with Rabbi Yehuda. Because if the chelev and the basar or the shiur mincha are not roy, then it says, oh, they're missing. You can't bring a carbon without that element. Ella, says the Gemara, let's offer another suggestion. Perhaps Rabbi Yehuda is in line with our mission. And the answer is like this. Rabbi Yehuda requires basar. But b'di'evet, if he did the zrika even without basar, it's kosher. Rabbi Yehuda only doesn't allow you to do it l'chatchila initially when there's no basar. The evet loy, but b'di'evet it works. And perhaps our Mishnah is speaking about b'di'evet. Umanat hemra, how would you know to differentiate? Umanat hemra, the shani leid Rabbi Yehuda, that according to Rabbi Yehuda, there's a difference between ben l'chatchila and b'di'evet. L'chatchila you're not meant to do it, but b'di'evet it works. The son, because you have a brisa which teaches us that nitma basar, or shenifsal, or sheyatzach l'kloim, the basar of the carbon became tamai, or became puzzle through touching a tful yaim, or left the kloim, the curtains. It means the mishkan, or in the out of the azara. He says, despite the fact that there is no basar, tar or kasher, you can still do the zrika as long as you have dam. Rabbi Shimon lo yizarik. The zrika cannot be done because you need to have basar. Basar which is kasher, basar which is tar. That's the chatchil. Umayder Rabbi Yehuda shem zara kurza. But certainly, even according to Rabbi Yehuda, b'di'evet, if he did zrika, even in the absence of basar, the carbon is hurtza, it's kasher, it's effective. So we see clearly that according to Rabbi Yehuda, b'di'evet it works. So perhaps that's a solution to our kasha. Our Mishnah is speaking of b'di'evet. Says the Gemara, we have two problems. Number one, the psula, but the Mishnah earlier said that when the shiuri mincha became tamay or lost, according to Rabbi Yehuda, it's puzzle. That term, psula, what does that sound like? The psula, the evet mashma. Sounds like it's puzzling with the evet. V'oid, in addition, even if perhaps you'll say psula means, well, l'chatchila it's puzzle, but the evet it's good, we have another kasha. Take a closer look at the wording of our Mishnah. Chamisha dvarim boim. These following items can be brought, even though they're tummy. What does that sound like? Boy means lechatchila mashma. You can bring it without hesitation. So that takes us back to square one. Apparently our Mishnah is not consistent with Rabbi Yehuda. A Mishnah which allows you to even lechatchila bring a carbon, knowing full and well that you don't have the basar here. You don't have the chelik achiles. Roi lahakrova is apparently not fitting with Rabbi Yehuda, who requires not only the dam but also the basar. Ella finally says the Gemara like kasha. The answer will be like this: Kan b'yachid, kan b'tzibur. Rabbi Yehuda, who says l'chatchila the basar needs to be present, speaking about a carbon yachid. However, our Mishnah is speaking about a carbon tzibur. A tzibur to mahucha b'tzibur. We're going back from our working assumption that when we have a tumah b'tzibur, it's not mutter, it's just overridden, it's pushed away, it's out of necessity, and you need to have that tzitz to help things out, in which case it won't work over here because the tzitz won't help for the achila, which is needed. No, says the Gemara, rather than say tumah tchuya b'tzibur, we hold tumah hucha b'tzibur. It's perfectly permissible. The Torah tells you, bring the carbon. I reckon everything as part of the akrova. The dam, the basar, even though it's tummy, it's considered as part of the akrova process. And you're not lacking anything. You have both elements here. You have dam and basar. So that's the pshat in our Mishnah. We're speaking about a carbon tzibur, and since it's mutter to bring it, you don't need the tzitz to come help us out. Sure, the tzitz can help for the achila portion. It's mutter, you don't need tzitz. It's a perfectly acceptable carbon. You have dam, you have basar, which the Torah accepts lichatchila, and you have a full akrova encompassing both elements of a carbon, dam and basar, the koimets and shirayim. Therefore, even according to Rabbi Yehuda, there's no concern whatsoever. We make the quick chazar of today's daf. We learned that all these karbanos, which are time sensitive, can be brought even b'shabbos or b'tumah. We proceeded with 4 machlekes. Tumah is hutra b'tzibur or just dechuya b'tzibur. when we need the tzitz to help us. Does it only work when it was worn by Aaron, or even when it's off his forehead? When tzitz is meratzeh, is it only effective for the dam, or even for the achila portion of the carbon? Is dam without basar enough to allow zrika? That's Rabbi Lezer. According to Rabbi Yehoda, you need dam and basar. We proceed with a kasha. We assume that our Mishnah follows the shita tumah is dechuya, which means you need a tzitz, and the tzitz won't help for the achila portion. Our Mishnah, which allows you to bring a carbon which is entirely tummy, doesn't seem to work with Rabbi Yehoda, who needs the achila portion. The Gemara concluded, our Mishnah follows the shita of tumah hutra b'tziba. It's perfectly mutter. Even the chelik achila is kosher, and it's part of the akrama. Hatzlacha Rabbah.